First of all, we must know about macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is a branch of economics that deals with the structure, performance, behavior, and decision-making of the whole or aggregate economy. There are two types of policies, which are monetary policies and fiscal policy. Unemployment can be defined as people who are employable and actively looking for a job but cannot find it. People in this category are those who are in the labor force but do not have an appropriate job. There are 6 types of unemployment. First, frictional unemployment. Second, structural unemployment. Third, technological unemployment. Fourth, cyclical unemployment. Fifth, disguised unemployment. And the last one, seasonal unemployment. Effects of unemployment on each individual person. They will have low self-esteem, feel useless, and burden to the family and society. Also, they will be increasing drug addicts, suicide, mental problems, and depression. Unemployment can also increase crime rates in a country, which are robberies, snatch thefts, burglaries, domestic violence, and family split-ups. Also, in a country, there will be a higher poverty rate. Effects of unemployment could cause underutilization of resources, which lead to loss of income and lower economic growth. Unemployment can cause a lot of hardship to the people, government, and the society. So, how can we control the unemployment? There are 2 measurements, which are expansionary monetary policy and expansionary fiscal policy. By using the method of expansionary monetary policy, this can reduce interest rates across the yield curve, which spurs businesses to borrow money to buy capital equipment and hire more workers. The second way the government reduces unemployment is through fiscal policy. Using the expansion of fiscal policy, the President and Congress create jobs by increasing spending on government projects.
Okay, now we go to unemployment situation during the yearly fasa of COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia. Malaysia labour market has been impacted by the COVID-19 outbreak. According to the Malaysian Department of Statistics, there is an increase in unemployment rate 3.3% in January 2020 to 5.3% in May 2020. There were 7.1 million persons that were unemployed in January 2020. Similarly, employment losses surged by 42% year-over-year in the first quarter of 2020. And now we go to a factor that contribute to the increment of unemployment in Malaysia. The main factor of this is Movement Control Order. Movement Control Order is a series of national quarantine to all citizens in Malaysia. During that time, all people unable to move freely. Most companies said they were unable to pay beyond 2 months' wages of their employee, while 2/3 of the company did not earn any income. So, because of this, many small and medium enterprise close or go bankrupt due to the losses suffered by them. Other than that, there is a company that make decision to stop hiring new employees as well as try to reduce employees in order to reduce operating costs. Okay, now we go to action taken by government in order to reduce unemployment. There is a few solutions provided by government to reduce unemployment during this COVID-19 outbreak. Okay, the first one is the wages subsidy program PSU. Help provided to employer of each firms under the Kita Prihatin packages. PSU benefits both employers and registered employees. Okay, the second one is under budget 2022, Malaysia short-term employment program MyStep has promised contract job over the next 5 years in the public sector and for government-linked companies and strategic partners. Okay, the third one is the government introduced Professional Entrepreneur Development Program Prospect to provide professionals with opportunities to venture into entrepreneurship and understand the intricacies of business based on the expertise. Okay, now we go to unemployment situation in Malaysia during COVID-19 endemic. Okay, the Malaysia government officially declared the endemic fasa will be in 1 April 2022. The main effect of this endemic declaration is unemployment rate dipped to 3.9% in April 2022 from 4.1% a month earlier due to the increase in the country's employment number, while the unemployment figure declined as economic activity flourished due to the reopening of the country borders in tandem with its transition to the COVID-19 endemic fasa on April 1, 2022. Okay, now we go to unemployment situation during the yearly fasa of COVID-19 pandemic in China. According to the National Bureau of Statistics of China, there was an increase in unemployment in China by 3 million people as the rate increased from 5.2% in December 2019 to 5.9% in March 2020. After that, urban unemployment rate rose to 6% in April from March, according to the figures released Friday by the National Bureau of Statistics. This is the only what has been officially reported and does not include rural migrant workers. If the migrant workers included, it would change the recent peak in unemployment from roughly 6% to nearly 20%. Now we go to factors that contribute to the increment of unemployment in China. Okay, the main effect is lockdown. As China battled its worst coronavirus outbreaks, its uncompromising determination to eliminate infection has left millions unable to work. Stringent lockdown hitting city after city have forced factories and businesses to shut, sometimes for weeks, including in some of the country's most important economic centers. This situation made the company unable to operate, that resulted to no or low income received. Other than that, low income received make the company will suffer losses, and to prevent this, the company is likely to reduce worker and stop hiring employee.
Let's move to the action taken by China government to reduce unemployment. The first one is they help small businesses through an increase in lending, providing subsidies and tax break. The government has given 67,000 jobless migrants a one-time payment with an additional 2.8 million. More people will receiving unemployment benefits, which is averaging $571 per person, and another 5.78 million people will receive subsidies to combat inflation. For those unable to receive unemployment insurance, they do have the opportunity to apply for financial assistance depending on their income. Lastly, the Ministry of Education looks to create more opportunities for graduate education and also teacher positions, as well as to encourage small, medium-sized and micro enterprises to recruit more college graduates. As you guys know, unemployment situation in China during endemic phase have affected urban unemployment rose to 6.1% in April 2022 from 5.8% in the previous month. This highest reading since February 2020. It will breach the government's target for the jobless rate of 5.5% this year. Amid prolonged COVID-19 restrictions following widespread outbreaks in some key cities. Let's compare unemployment rate between Malaysia and China. For the year 2020, Malaysia's unemployment rate recorded at 4.55%, while China recorded at 5%, which increased by 1.24% and 0.48% respectively from the previous year, which are 3.31% and 4.52% respectively. For the first quarter 2022, Malaysia's unemployment rate recorded at 3.9%, which is decreased by 0.07% from 4.6% in 2021. For the next year first quarter 2022, Malaysia's unemployment rate recorded at 3.9%, which is decreased by 0.07% from 4.6% in 2021. If we compare with China, this country recorded urban unemployment rate at 6.1%, which increment by 2.14% from 3.96% in 2021. We moving forward to the second macroeconomic problem, which is inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is the rate of increase in price over a given period of time. Inflation is typically abrupt measures such as the overall increase in prices or the increases in the cost of living in a country. There are two types of inflation. The first one is demand pull inflation and the second one is cost push inflation.
We move to factors that influence Malaysia inflation. The pandemic that occurred produced a decrease in foreign exchange rate. The reason the country level of commerce is significantly influenced by the foreign exchange rate. The currency rate for Malaysia is fallen in July 2020. The cost of imported raw material is growing, which will cause cost push inflation as exchange rate weaken. The buying power of Malaysia ringgit is negatively impacted by weaker currency. Some of Malaysia ringgit are needed to trade for United States dollar. Next, due to the introduction of movement restriction, economic activity has decreased because of customers not making their customary purchases, which has to lead to the surplus of product and service on the market. Less money is being spent by the customers on the market, which will lessen the volatility of cash flow. According to the Department of Statistics Malaysia study on the impact of movement control order on household expenditure, household consumption pattern changed dramatically. Along with limit on travel and forced closure, some of industry that was deadline in spending category including transportation, dining out and lodging, as well as entertainment and apparel. This apparent shift in consumption pattern gave rise to full concern regarding the accuracy of inflation calculation. Consumers are having less money to spend because of the continuous COVID-19 pandemic and the tight labour market, which is why they want to reduce their spending in the next month. The crisis of the pandemic also changed the dynamic of competition. The maker of the enterprise that survived because of the epidemic might significantly affect Malaysia's inflation dynamics. Whether giant worldwide chains or local enterprise maker, the pool of businesses that survive might have influence. In addition, domestic product price may become more susceptible in change in global pricing. A change in maker of the market might also affect how responsively inflation reacts to economic slack. Now we move to impact on inflation during endemic phases in Malaysia. Because of inflation, food prices are starting to rise. The inflationary pressures are anticipated to worsen if the ringgit Malaysia keep falling because of rising United States interest rates. Next, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and Russia's exclusion from the major economy of the globe will hurt the national economy and cause inflationary shocks. Now we move to the step made by the government to solve the inflation issue in Malaysia. As part of its expansionary budgetary plan, the government increases the present financial aid it provides to small and medium-sized firms, SMEs. The purpose of the wage subsidy program is to assist employees and employers of small and medium-sized businesses and to ensure that these businesses can benefit expenses like monthly rent, employee wages and their other expenses. Financial assistance is to provide these businesses to accomplish these goals. Furthermore, this is to ensure that business can overcome the many challenges caused by the COVID-19 outbreak. Next, instead of handing out cash, the government also provides its citizens with vouchers for consumption. By promoting consumer spending on local funds, this voucher consumption aims to boost economic activity during the coronavirus outbreak. To guarantee that consumers spend their voucher purchases on locally products, goods and services rather than import things, vouchers consumption is offered.
We move to the factor that influence China's inflation. The causes of the inflation is increase in money supply and credit, which is overall demand for goods and services grows faster than its ability to produce them. With more money available to individuals, positive consumer sentiment leads to higher spending and increased demand pushes prices higher. Next, the rising costs as inputs in production process. When addition to the supply of money and credit are channeled into a commodity or other asset markets, and especially when this is accompanied by a negative economic shock to the supply of commodities, costs for all kinds of intermediate goods rise. The last factor is adaptive expectations, which is the idea that people expect current inflation rates to continue in the future as the price of goods and services rise. The inflation had caused China in losing their value of money. As the prices of products go up, money loses value. China can't buy as much as they could with the same amount of their money as before the inflation. As a result of loss of purchasing power, inflation causes consumers to try and find a return on their capital. Next, cost of consumers' living increase. As prices of goods increase, it goes without saying that consumers will have to pay more in order to buy basic necessities and luxuries alike. Last, the supply chain disruption in agriculture. The price of producing crops and animal feed also begins to rise when the price of urea increases. This will affect livestock and crops with quicker growth rates and shorter life cycle, and fresh vegetable and chicken supply would also be affected. During the endemic phase, the logistics issues and hoarding brought on by COVID-19 limits specifically had an impact on food prices. Housing costs, on the other hand, decreased as a result of sluggish demand in the real estate market, while selling prices to consumers are largely stable. Rising import costs have caused manufacturing inflation in China to reach its highest level. The action taken by China is applying monetary policy. The government's monetary policy tools is cutting banks' reserve requirement ratio. A lower bank's reserve requirement ratio means that banks have more cash to spend. Next, applying fiscal policy. The government has deployed a host of preferential tax policies and fee cuts to support both businesses and individuals throughout the pandemic. Lastly, action taken by China is ensure efficient agricultural product logistics. It is necessary to ensure that supply and demand information flows smoothly. We move to the last part, which is the comparison inflation rate between Malaysia and China. In 2019, Malaysia inflation rate was 0.66%, which is 0.22% decline from 2018. Meanwhile, for China, it was 2.90%, which is 0.82% increase from 2018. In 2020, Malaysia inflation rate was negative 1.14%. Meanwhile, for China, it was 2.42%, which is 0.48% decline from 2019.